right, welcome back. Let's get to take a look at some of the papers this Friday morning. Mr. Dayo Akintobi joins us live on the program. Public Affairs Analyst joins us live. Well, good to see you this Friday morning, Mr. Akintobi.
Always a pleasure to be here. TGIF.
It's a Black Friday, Mr. Akintobi. You know I'll never cease to talk about your amazing costume. You look good.
You always humble me. Thank you very much.
Well, the interesting thing is that...
I didn't get the memo on the red, by the way.
Oh, you didn't get it as well.
I would have come in red.
All right, so let's get things started with a new Telegraph this Friday morning. And it leads with this writer says, "We are engaging world diplomatically. We will defeat terrorism." And that's coming from President Bola Tinubu. We are engaging the world. Well, Trump's threats, it says we are engaging world diplomatically. We will defeat terrorism. Tinubu says, report, U.S. military draws up airstrike plans for Nigeria as U.S. legislators push for sanctions on Miyetti Allah, Fulani militias, others. FG taking U.S. designation of Nigeria as CPC seriously. That's coming from the Minister of Information. Well, Mr. Akintobi, where the conversation is headed now is that there's perhaps some sort of pressure for the Nigerian government to put a ban on Sharia laws. And as I said earlier, I do not envy Mr. President's position right now, because I'm wondering how is he able to navigate these power blocks and houses. I mean, you don't want to be caught up between the devil and the deep blue sea. So where does Mr. President and Nigeria go from here? And how does he get to handle this very sensitive issue or issues? Because we do also have an election around the corner, and Nigerian politicians do not play and joke when the elections are here.
Well, I think the president has started handling it, first of all, by addressing Nigerians indirectly through the Federal Executive Committee yesterday. And if you listen to what he said, he basically articulated the government's position about this current trending issue. By saying we're engaging our allies diplomatically, we're asking them to collaborate with us to solve this problem, he basically is acknowledging the fact that we do have a problem, which all Nigerians have known that, and that it shouldn't be framed so narrowly as Christians being exposed to genocidal killings, that this is a much broader and deeper problem and requires much more nuanced solutions that have defied Nigerian interventions up till this moment. Now, the way I see it is that President Trump's threat has galvanized action at last. It seems we've been comatose on this issue, or a bit nonchalant about this issue for too long. So the threat of a foreign power saying we will come and do what you have failed to do seems to have lit a fire under our government's inertia, to where now we see a concerted effort, or at least a resolute commitment to actually doing something
in the body language of the
absolutely, because nothing would be more debilitating to the image of a sovereign nation than for a foreigner to come in on its own unilateral interest and come and solve a problem in your own country. So of course nobody's going to sit back and watch that happen. So now you see a move towards trying to shore up the defenses, to come up with solutions, which we now say, okay, perhaps we can't handle this on our own, maybe we should ask for help. But the thing that surprises me is if you look at what Bukola was talking about earlier, that American military has laid out three modes of intervention: light, medium, and heavy. And one of them talks about the fact that they will deploy fighter jets to the heart of the terrorists' enclave, And I tell myself, that means America knows where the terrorists are. If America knows where the terrorists are, guess what? Nigerian government must know where the terrorists are too. I know America has satellites and they have drones and they have all kinds of technology that enables them to have the kind of intelligence that is second to none. But I don't believe they can know more about our own internal issues than our own government can. So you ask yourself, if America says we know where they are and we're going to go and eliminate them, what has stopped our government? 2.5 years of this administration, 8 years of the previous administration, so many years of the PDP administration when this problem became rife. What has stopped them? Is it lack of political will? Is it lack of morale within the military? Is it lack of fighting competence? What is it that has stopped us from addressing this problem before it now escaped our borders and became a matter of international concern? I've never been one to believe that a foreign power should interfere in the internal issues of an independent sovereign nation. But if what Trump's pronouncements have achieved is just simply galvanizing us into action, which it seems to have. You see a flurry of activity all of a sudden. Yesterday, the Chief of Air Staff talked about the professionalism of his air fleet and his pilots and what they will begin to do. And you see the Chief of Defense Staff, you see a flurry of activity that says, yes, we now want to do something about this. So if that's all we've achieved by President Trump's pronouncements, if it galvanizes us into action to finally begin to address these issues, then it's a good thing.
And you know, you made some very compelling points earlier when you asked why the Nigerian government over the years, through different administrations, have been unable to go to those terrorist enclaves and indeed carry out a decisive operation, especially because we've had negotiators who had gone to these enclaves, you know, and made a case for the terrorists. So it's a really compelling question. And I also recall amid conversations with members of past administrations, they've talked about these terrorists having human shields. And all of that, but those answers have never really been satisfactory. So we look forward to how the government will engage diplomatically, quote and unquote, with their US partner. But let's go to The Guardian this morning. And The Guardian is reflecting on something entirely different, but just as important.
Guardian always does.
Right. Nigeria's press at 166. Now, that's a very interesting tally, you know, from right before independence. Old battles linger amid new threats, fight for survival and truth. And, you know, the press has played key roles through the ages. It's 166 that, you know, the Guardian is telling us that we're celebrating. Some of us do not even, we don't even know, right? To realize. So, Mr. Akitobi, walk us through all of those phases that the press has been through and what the press is dealing with right now.
There's a general perception in the public that press freedom is under assault of late. But I think it's primarily because of the rise of the internet and the fact that everybody is a journalist nowadays. You have a mobile phone, you have some data, and you begin to be able to break news from anywhere, at any time, in any manner. And much of it generally is not professional or ethical. So there's a blurring of the lines between professional journalism, the way we were trained. We understand the rules of the craft, but the citizen journalist doesn't. And a lot of what you see when you hear people being arrested for defamation, criminal defamation, people who are willy-nilly posting things on the internet that are not verified, that cannot be confirmed, you begin to see that there seems to be a groundswell of interdiction on freedom of speech. But the truth is, if you look at the core journalist who is trained and knows his craft, you will find that violations are few and far between. We practice our craft professionally, and when we do that, our freedoms or our ability to practice our trade is not really threatened. I don't see any administration who's willy-nilly arresting bona fide journalists for speaking out and reporting the truth. Where the issue comes up, as I've said, is the citizen journalist or the non-professional who is playing in a professional field without understanding the rules that govern the trade. And that is why it looks like people are being arrested for saying things, or people are being charged to court for saying things. So I think that in the 160 odd years of the Nigerian press, we have evolved over time. I mean, in the military era, there was definitely an open season on journalists to where, you know, your life was definitely at risk if you spoke against the administrations in power then under military rule. But once we got to democracy, I think that our politicians recognize the fact that the media is a partner in progress in democracy, not an enemy. And they've learned that the more they collaborate with the media, the better. We're all in the same role. We all work towards development and progress of Nigeria. But the reason they call the media the fourth estate of the realm is that it has a checks and balance role in terms of, after the three arms of government, the media plays a role of ensuring accountability and transparency in the political space.
Maybe two questions in one. Do you think that perhaps our laws has also helped to limit how expressive the professional journalists are? Do you think our laws perhaps, I mean, sometimes it's difficult trying to explain to Nigerians that, look, some make comparisons. Can't you see what CNN is doing? Can't you see how they're opposing Donald Trump? Can't you see what Al Jazeera is doing? So do you think perhaps our laws some sort of limit how we are able to express ourselves? And then the other question would be, for the bloggers, for the influencers, for the journalists from the comfort of their bedrooms, there's that debate as to perhaps should they be regulated or not. Where do you stand?
Well, the funny thing about the internet is the wild, wild west. But there's a fear of regulation, because the moment you begin to regulate it, you threaten free speech. Because even in spite of the complaints about citizen journalism not being professional, the Constitution still guarantees the right to free speech. But no right or no freedom is absolute. Because you have the right to swing your fist anywhere, anyhow, anytime. But that right ends, guess where? Where my nose begins. So there is a restriction on how free you are to swing your fist. So I don't think freedoms should be totally absolute. And when they're absolute, you see what happens, especially in a place like the internet, where you have the anonymity of the online cyberspace world, where you can do and undo anonymously without anybody knowing who you are. You can create mayhem. So there does need to be some oversight, and I think all governments across the world recognize that. So it's a fine balancing act. How do you regulate while at the same time not restricting constitutional protections? Now, in terms of laws limiting our ability to be more vibrant in this craft, I don't think there's any restrictive law that I am aware of that inhibits our practice. I think we are the ones that need to continually push the envelope. I see some journalists today who are doing fantastic work in terms of putting the feet to the fire of people in power, demanding accountability. Maybe the CNN and the Al Jazeeras that you mentioned, perhaps they are better funded, perhaps they are better trained, perhaps they have more wider resources to rely on. But I don't see that they're doing any better at investigating the issues that concern the quality of life of their people. I don't think they're doing any better than we are. And if we are inhibited by anything, it's not by laws on the books. I mean, we have tools. We look at things like Freedom of Information Act. That is a law that you can use as a journalist to extract information that perhaps government doesn't want you to have, things that they are hiding, that they don't want the public to know. There are some laws on the books that empower us to be able to go ahead and dig in places where, shine a light. That is what journalism is all about, shining a light where there's darkness. It is about bringing the truth to the world. And I believe we do that, and I don't think there's any specific stricture on our ability to do that beyond we limiting ourselves. I don't think there's a corporate or wholesale endeavor to restrict or inhibit our ability to ferret out the truth.
And you know, there are very clear lines, although some would argue that they're blurry, between, you know, clamping down or if you like, constructive criticism, accountability through investigative journalism,
yes,
and a put-me-down approach to, you know, citizen journalism, which is not a brand of professional journalism anyway, you know, where someone just sits in the comfort of their room and, you know, calls leaders names. It is the accountability part that, you know, the body of journalists is saying, do not clamp down on dissent, do not clamp down on constructive criticism,
yes,
and let, you know, journalism thrive.
Absolutely.
It's a very important conversation that should be mainstreamed time and again.
Yes.
But what it appears as if we're not quite done yet with, you know, the Trump's designation of Nigeria as a CPC, a country of particular concern, and that's what Daily Independent is focusing on this morning. Will overcome Trump's CPC designation, Tinubu assures, and there are a host of riders, says diplomatic engagement with global partners ongoing. Well, the front page of Daily Independent is not readily available at this time, but perhaps we could look at other stories on the front page of The Guardian, things that we'll be looking at ahead of on the program. Anxiety, tight security as Anambra elects new governor tomorrow. We've had assurances from INEC, we've had assurances from the, you know, security agencies in Anambra State. But when you look at, you know, that state traditionally and all of the factors that, you know, come together to ensure the election, and indeed, you know, mixed with the current security challenges in Anambra State, what are your expectations ahead of tomorrow's exercise?
Before I address that, let me talk quickly about what you mentioned on the last headline about the president saying we will approach this problem diplomatically. And the question I ask is, any diplomatic intervention you engage in now is hampered by the fact that you don't have ambassadors. Because ambassadors basically are the front line of diplomacy. And the fact that you don't have them in place means that any engagement you're going to have with your foreign allies is already right from the beginning off the back foot. So that's an issue. Now, in terms of Anambra, historically from, I think, 2003, 2007, as far as I remember, 2011, two issues have plagued Anambra elections. Primarily, number one is logistics in terms of quick delivery, early delivery, on-time delivery of sensitive election materials, on-time commencement of the election. I believe INEC regulations require their ad hoc staff to be on ground at 7 or 7:30 or thereabouts, and for voting to commence at 8 or 8:30 or thereabouts. It has never happened in Anambra. Election materials are always come late. Ad hoc staff get there behind time. Elections start late. In some polling units, elections don't hold at all because materials didn't get there. The second primary issue in Anambra, and this is my concern for tomorrow's election, is voter apathy. Anambra has recorded continuously low participation in terms of voter turnout, and has come about with the untenable situation, which is abhorrent in democracy, that whoever is ruling Anambra has been voted in by a minority to rule over the majority. And that's simply because the people are not interested in the electoral process. Maybe there have been various studies that show that there are various reasons for voter apathy. Some of the electorate believes that the results are already pre-written and preordained. Some believe that their vote won't count, it won't make a difference. Some believe that the incumbent has already rigged Some believe there'll be intimidation, there'll be vote buying. There are various reasons for why people shun elections. But it has a very negative impact on the eventual outcome of how the results play out. So this is my concern for Anambra for tomorrow. I was listening to the new INEC chairman, Professor Joash Amukwito, and his reassurances inspire some confidence that INEC has done its part to be well prepared. He has assured that in terms of security, they are deploying 45,000 policemen and I think 10,000 civil defense officers. They've assured that even one or two areas that are security plagued, that the voters there can go. They've arranged for them to go to the council offices to vote as opposed to the wards where they'll be protected. So the INEC chairman is saying, for our part, we've done everything. And we saw a video yesterday of the sensitive election materials being brought out of the CBN office. And I saw the process by which the REC authenticated each of them and was verified by each of the party agents. So there seems to be process, due process, accountability, transparency so far. So I think we should give the new INEC chairman benefit of the doubt. It looks like he's hit the ground running and he's approaching this from the right perspective. So I put the onus back on the electorate. That, look, I was watching the rallies of the different parties. I watched APC rally, I watched APGA rally, I watched, I think, ADC, yes, ADC rally. And there seems to be an energy, especially in the incumbents campaign. The energy and the crowd looked organic. It didn't look like it was bought. And there was a lot of excitement in the air. And it looks like people are really happy with what the incumbent has been doing. But likewise, APC, probably being the party in the center, their rally also looked vibrant and colorful. And there was a lot of music. There was a lot of excitement. So I asked myself that all these people who turned out in the hot sun to come and join this campaign and this rally and having fun, and they're all hailing their candidate, where will they be tomorrow? Why do we have this dichotomy between campaign excitement and poor turnout at the polls? Where is the disconnect coming from? Because historically, that's what has happened in Anambra. So we're hoping tomorrow INEC will play its part. The electoral will come out. The electorate will come out and vote en masse. And that the police and the security architecture will play their part to make sure there's no voter intimidation, that no one is harassed, that they protect and defend anyone who wants to cast their vote, to allow that person to vote. I also want to see this issue of the technology that INEC has, BVAS, for example, for accreditation of voters. If BVAS doesn't accredit you, you shouldn't vote. Not that, oh, it didn't work, bring your voter card, this, that, let's do a walk-around solution. No, if BVAS doesn't accredit you, then you shouldn't vote. Then IREF should work as intended so that what is documented at the polls, I advise Anambra voters, after you voted, stay there, don't leave. Stay at the polls, the polling unit, until the votes are counted, until they are reported, logged into IREF and uploaded. Then go and confirm that what you witnessed yourself firsthand is what is showing on the reporting portal. And
you have laid out the levels of assessment of the new INEC chairman. By this time tomorrow, we'll begin to know whether it's a new man, a new sheriff in town, or it's business as usual, where we begin to see the deployment of materials, logistics, and indeed the functioning of the BVAS. Of course, we can tell. Yes. Now we have Daily Independent, and we've reflected exhaustively on the Trump's designation of Nigeria as CPC. But at the top of the nameplate, we have this one. Senate asks NAFDAC to ban sachet alcohol by December. Now, there's a tricky line between, putting people out of business, out of employment, and of course, the concern about youth indulgence. Where are you in this particular position held by the Senate?
There's a drug problem, there's an addiction problem, there's an abuse problem among Nigeria's youth, between hard drugs, alcohol, whatever substance can be abused, there's a problem among Nigerian youth. And so desperate times call for desperate measures. The prevalence of sachet alcohol, what it does is that it makes it inexpensive to buy. In the past, when they packaged them in big bottles, you needed a lot of money to be able to afford a bottle. But this idea of sachet alcohol came from when they did sachet milk and reduced the packaging of commodities to make it more affordable for people whose spending power was limited. And it was such a raging success with things like milk, things like noodles, things like coffee. You saw reduced packaging so that you didn't need a whole lot of money to buy a quantity that would last you for months. You could buy single serving helpings for next to nothing. So of course the alcohol distillers gave themselves some brain and said, we can duplicate this, and they did. The issue, of course, is that it has exacerbated Nigeria's abuse problem because it's readily available. Where do I stand on it? The ban has been in place for a while. They just want...
Extend.
Yes, it's been extended till December, and they say we shouldn't extend it any longer. Well, there's a fine balance between entrepreneurship, capitalism, wanting to be able to sell goods and products versus consumer protection.
Yeah. All right. We must anchor at this point, and it's been, a thought-provoking engagement, as it is always with you, Mr. Akitobi. Thank you for coming.
Thank you very much.
On the program. Mr. Akitobi is a very dependable public affairs analyst.